right, this Plakic guy she mentioned, he's popping up in a couple of different cultures. He's described as the Prince of Penance in Celtic mythology, and that name comes up everywhere from Eastern religions to Chinese restaurant names. He does, unsurprisingly, show up in several South American beliefs, being hailed as the mouth of hell.
Well, maybe he sings.
Yeah, well, he doesn't look like a very nice guy. It's bat wings, 5 eyes. Looks like he's eating potatoes. I don't really know what that is.
The two men sat across from each other, surrounded in research articles and archaeological websites, as well as a substantial mound of religious literature.
There are many demons, Liam. Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about them. The only thing we do know is that each one has the power to destroy lives. I mean, these things are the minions of the devil himself.
All right. How do I kill one?
I don't think you can. I mean, we don't even really know what hell looks like. They only come in thread between all of these descriptions as fire. Sometimes there's darkness, sometimes worms. There's not really a solid image. If this really is some kind of a supernatural portal you've stumbled onto, you may not even be able to breathe down there. You could be engulfed in flames as soon as you walk through the door.
Preacher, theoretically speaking, how would I kill one?
Bryson began to spitball.
It's been said that angels and demons can walk among us. When they take human form, they're bound by our laws. They have to breathe, to eat, to sleep. But imagine if you could somehow lure one here on Earth in human form, perhaps they'd be vulnerable to the same kind of damage that we are, even though they're spirits. Dying inside of a mortal form could potentially lock them in some kind of a paradoxical state. But I mean, that's just a guess. I don't know anything.
That's okay. It could work. What about when I'm in their world? What am I looking at?
Revenants, monsters, you name it. Who knows? We don't know what you'll encounter. All we know is that it's not going to be good.
So nothing a grenade can't fix.
Liam, hell is an entirely different realm. As far as we know, your weapons won't even work down there. You may not even be able to hurt these things.
Supposed to be a place of suffering, right? That means pain still applies. And if pain still applies, well, I can work with that.
3 days went by, filled with endless hours of studying and exploration into what little intel they could find about their mystical enemies. The fire department was more than happy to lend a Marine some spare equipment, and ammo is cheaper in bulk. Liam had his mission. He had his hope. But did he have a chance? Bryson insisted on accompanying him into South America. He'd begun to admire this troubled soldier in the bravery he showed, even when facing the promise of anguish. He'd come here to risk his life, but more than that, his soul, his eternity. Bryson had never seen anything like it. Even if it was all a delusion, the fact that this man was truly willing to go this far for his brethren was awesome. But what made him hurt was that no one was there to see it. No family waving goodbye or peers to cheer him on. No one would even believe it if he told them.
All right, preacher, this is your stop. I want to thank you for coming with me this far. You didn't have to do that.
Liam, if you think I'm going to stay in this hotel and fly home tomorrow, you're crazy. Somebody's going to see you off.
We're going to be in the middle of the jungle. In case you haven't heard, it's not exactly a field trip out there.
If you can take a hike into hell, I can take a hike into the jungle.
It didn't take them long to find it, that terrible, blackened place amongst the oceans of green. After a 2-day, miserable hike and a few close encounters with danger, the two travelers rested about 3 clicks from the site. As the final stretch neared closer, Liam buried his unneeded gear and began to strap on the essentials. Over his fire-retardant clothing, he fastened his magazines and medical supplies. He buckled his oxygen mask and holstered his sidearm next to the combat knife that hugged his thigh. His AR-10 was furnished with a suppressor and a thermal power optic in case things got smoky. With ordnance fitted on his back and a lime green plastic pistol on his belt, he was ready.
Is that a water gun?
Just in case.
His already muscular build was exaggerated by the intimidating hardware, although Bryson doubted the demons would feel the same way.
So this is it, huh? I feel like I should be going with you.
This is my fight, man. If I don't make it back, you follow this red line on the map. The exact route we took to get here. You stay low and you stay quiet.
You're gonna make it back, Liam. But you might need this.
Bryson pulled out a small wooden trinket from his jacket pocket, a necklace that dangled with a cross at its ends. He lifted it over the soldier's head, and the crucifix rested in front of the heart.
If the guns fail, this won't.
You think he's with me?
Who?
God.
Well, I don't think he'd be disappointed, if that's what you're asking. Now, how are you going to get through this door?
Well, the writing says the key is the blood of the free. And we're Americans. Doesn't get any freer than that, my friend.
Liam had made his way down the wicket stairs and found the seance chamber. The candle was still flickering just as tall as before. The aged seal crusted around the clad door, undisturbed, and the essence of the walls devoid of liquid. Liam used his knife to prick a small wound in his palm and let the blood drip onto the ground. Then he let a drip drop onto the head of the candle. The torch was finally quenched with the essence of red, like it had been satisfied by a gift. Suddenly, the loose petals fled from the room like the wind of a sandstorm had chased them away, leaving Liam in a pitch-black space. The ground began to shake, and the seal around the door flaked as it rattled. The iron broke free from its aged slumber and scraped across the ground like a page tearing in half. The deep hum of the earth gargled, and a sunless ray of vicious light breathed through the ever-widening passageway. Liam felt his heart stop as his eyes beheld what was in front of him. The arched corridor gave way to the sight Liam hadn't truly believed before. The land beyond was vast and stretched as far as the eye could see. The ceiling of the massive beyond was like black clouds oppressing all over everything below. The uneven ground was powdered in soot with veiny rivers of magma oozing through it like orange trails of oil. The stones and boulders protruded into charred mountains, shaped like the clawing talons of a giant, and their shadows tainted the every lumen burgundy in the air. Massive holes in the ground were caped with sheets of smoke that floated over the missing places like a false net of safety from the searing abyss. Strange, raw metal structures were erected from the ground, each one with a repulsive design, barren of mercy. The entirety of it all blurred and distorted by the familiar drifting of heat, making it all appear like nothing but an eternal mirage. The wretched shriek of beast and prey alike echoed deafeningly around the realms, as if sound itself could not escape. The growl of the tombs and the clang of scalding steel sounded together like the beating of death's drum. Liam's boots patted down onto the dust as he took his first steps across the threshold. He could feel the thickness of the air squeeze around him, like he was sinking in dry tar. His hands quivered with an instant sweat as his mind refused to comprehend the agony that gripped his soul. The putrid odor, like that of rotting meat, choked his nostrils, and the miserable wind stabbed him with the scent of torment. It took him nearly 5 minutes to gather himself, to the point where he could stand on his wobbling legs. He unzipped a pouch and pulled a small blinking device from it before burying the tracker in the dust, enabling him to find his way back, however far this journey would take him. He switched on his electronics, checked the functionality and ammunition of his rifle, and tested the atmosphere with an oxygen meter. Finally, he set out. He climbed up a nearby hill to survey the area below. From the high ground, he saw a place he hoped he would never find. A pit, gigantic in nature, like the footprint of a mountain bored into the dirt. All manner of horror was spread about, a circular arena built for the sole purpose of agony. There were shackles, whipping posts, iron maidens, cages forged from hot iron, and a numberless array of any form of gore, known or unknown. Buildings and decrepit dungeons congregated together like a small city, and Liam didn't want to know what was inside. Then, for the first time, He laid eyes upon the creatures that roamed beneath. Some of them were lanky, bony, abnormally long, with thin skin that resembled stretched leather over clusters of dry bones. Some were like crocodiles, rabid and ferocious, with savagery stuck between their foul teeth and skeletal armor like a crustacean. Some seemed to be nothing more than an animalistic embodiment of rage, while others showed signs of intelligence and leadership, like slave drivers to the rest. Liam's hands shook as he quickly cataloged what he saw. He jotted down shapes, sizes, intelligence, and numbers, taking notes of apparent physical strengths, senses, and weak spots, struggling to see past the daunting smells and repulsive features. He scribbled down a decent bio of stats as fast as he could peer through his monocular. A single tear fogged up the lens as he watched. The carnage of it all, the gruesome sight enough to make a rat nauseous. Countless humans were lined up in rows by the hundreds, like dead cattle forming an ordered display of meat, their bodies helplessly drawn and bruised by the fury of their fate as they dangled like numbered corpses from the noose. Liam tried his best to push the sympathy and anger to the back of his mind and stay composed. Suddenly, his heart jumped when the scope passed over a familiar face. Sanchez. Liam felt a breath of relief before it was crushed by a wave of grisly sorrow at the sight of a friend. Sanchez was strung up by his arms like the rest, with a pair of rigid cuffs gnawing at his wrist. His arms and legs were gashed with bubbled purples and brutal blacks that looked like puddles of boiling sap. His skin was yellowed with an infected hue, as if he'd been drinking urine for months on end. His skin was abused and charred, leaving him naked and bald with ugly patches of hair struggling to survive. A wheel of metal with blades and spikes on the inside of the circle was wrapped around his torso, so that he could not breathe without the metal sawing into his ribcage again and again. Liam looked away and sunk down into a childlike position, trying to contain the boiling emotions inside. His tears swelled and his lungs begged to yell out with a passionate cry. His nose puffed and his eyes watered over the edge, dripping the first drop of moisture this place had ever seen. He found himself grasping the cross around his neck zealously and cradled it like a forgotten